So the next step for us will be to install the Laravel Homestead Vagrant image. So there's going to be a command we're going to run in our terminal. And that is going to be the following. Vagrant box add and then Laravel Homestead. So let's go ahead and pull this box down now and add it to our system, and then we'll show how to set it up in a moment. Pulling down this box is going to take quite a while, so again, if you're ready to take another break, now's a good time. Okay, now we have successfully added the box Laravel/Homestead and shows our version number into VirtualBox. So let's jump back over to the documentation for Homestead, which you'll find at laravel.com/docs/homestead. Okay, like I said earlier, this is what I'm going to be using as a reference for everything. So installation and setup, we've already gone through adding VirtualBox and Vagrant. Now we're going to be adding the Vagrant box. That is done. So the next step, it says, is to clone the Homestead repository. Well, Homestead is going to be the base for all of our Laravel projects during development. When we clone the repository from GitHub, we'll want to put it into a Homestead folder. I personally like to place this in my home folder under Homestead. That way you can place it wherever you like, but for me, I'll be using the home folder as a base throughout this entire project. So let's go ahead and copy this line here, and we're going to paste it into our terminal. Clear what was here before, and now let's take a look at where we are. And you can see I'm in the /users/Hampton, or my home directory. Another way you can look at that is the small tilde, which will tell you that you're in the home directory. So this is the location I want. I'm going to paste in my command. You'll see here we're just cloning the GitHub Laravel Homestead repository and placing it into a folder, the very last option there called Homestead. So we'll hit enter and get started there. Okay, so now that we are here, let's jump into the actual Homestead folder. Okay, so you'll see here we have a few Git files here, Git folders that are hidden, a Homestead YAML file, which is our settings file, the Vagrant file, some aliases, a nice markdown README, and then scripts. Let's take this and open it up in Sublime. You can either do that manually, or the shortcut is SUBL and then dot for the current folder and hit enter. Okay, so here we have our Homestead folder opened, and you'll see there's our files. The one we want to focus on right now, it will be the homestead.yaml file. What you're going to see in the Homestead file is our basic settings for what we need. The authorization, the keys, folders, sites, and variables. The authorization is going to be our SSH key. If you don't have an SSH key set up on your computer, and the way you can check that is jumping over to your terminal. Inside of your terminal in the home folder, if you do a ls-la, you should see a .ssh folder. So if you change directories into .ssh and then look at that, here you'll see ID RSA, ID_RSA.pub. That will tell you have your key set up. If you do not have a SSH key set, you want to use on OS X the SSH-keygen command. And the way we're going to do that is do SSH-keygen, and then we're going to run a flag for -t, RSA, -C, and then in double quotes, your email address. In my case, it is hampton@teamtreehouse.com, and then close it with double quotes. Now, I'm not going to run this command because I already have a key generated. There's also a great guide on GitHub about creating and generating SSH keys. I'll put a link below. Okay, so here, users and then me, in my case, it's going to be Hampton, and then SSH, and then ID_RSA pub, which we just saw in the terminal. Same thing is going to be here, just same username. So under the folders setup section here in the Homestead YAML file, we're basically saying that we want to map users/Hampton/Homestead/projects to a folder on our Vagrant box. In this case, defaults to home Vagrant code. We're going to say home Vagrant sites, and then the next thing is the sites itself. That section is telling us what is our URL that we're going to enter in locally that will access our Vagrant box. In this case, it's homestead.app. We can change it to anything we want. Here, I'm going to go ahead and change it to laravel.dev. And then the home Vagrant code Laravel public, that's a way that we're saying on the Vagrant machine, on the Vagrant box, what is the public folder of our Laravel project. Now, we haven't even gotten to installing the Laravel project just yet, so we don't really have to update this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it ahead of time, and you'll just have to trust me that this is the right location. So we're going to go under here and change it, obviously, to sites. And then Laravel is not what I'm going to call my project. I'm going to call it Laravel Basics. And then public, which will be our public folder inside of the Laravel project. The app env for local, for the variables, we can just leave that for now. No need to worry about it. Same goes for the IP, the memory, or the CPU usage for the actual Homestead installation. Okay, let's save this file and head back over to our Laravel Homestead docs. Next thing we need is our SSH key, which we've done. Here you see the command that we need in order to produce that SSH key. We've configured our shared folders. We've configured our sites. We don't necessarily need to deal with the bash aliases just yet, but we have now edited the Homestead YAML file. And so now we need to run the vagrant up command from the Homestead directory in our terminal. So let's switch over to our terminal and make sure we're in the right directory. We are. And let's do that now. Vagrant up. Okay, so here we're getting a little bit of an error here saying that we have a host network colliding with a non-host network. So that would be something in our YAML file that's causing this issue. So let's switch over and change it to something that will work for our local environment. So now using 10.0.10.10 so it doesn't conflict with my private network. And let's see if this makes a difference when we run Vagrant up. Okay, so as it looks, we're started. So now we need to figure out how do we get into our box and how do we use it. Okay, switching back over to our Homestead docs, after we've run this, we could access our box by going to 127.0.0.1, but there's nothing there for us to see just yet. So what we're going to need to do is connect with SSH using the daily usage section here on the Laravel docs. So here you see connecting with SSH. One of the things we're going to do is SSH vagrant localhost set the port, and we could set an alias. But in our case, we're just going to run a very simple command, which you'll see here on the screen, vagrant SSH. So in our Homestead directory, let's run vagrant SSH. Now you notice we have shelled into our local development environment in a virtual box. It says it's running Ubuntu 14.04 LTS. So we are inside of a full Unix or Linux box, and now we have an entire development environment that we can install and add packages to. Now, here we want to take a look around. You see the tilde, which tells us we're in our Homestead folder, and vagrant is our username or where our files are. If we hit the ls command, you'll see that there is a sites folder, which if you recall, we set that up in our homestead.yaml file. Let's look inside the sites folder and see if there's anything there. So we'll change directory to the sites folder and do another ls. Nothing there. Totally fine. So what we're going to want to do is in this folder, we're going to actually install Laravel here on our development box.